The EU and the euro currency are the first major steps in global governance. Complete control over the political and financial systems of all countries underneath it. The elite have waited hundreds and hundreds of years to exact this level of domination over countries. The only one issue is that, as expected, it doesn't work. Countries can't keep in line with their magical numbers that technocrats have decided on. But of course, this was the plan from the beginning. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to talk about the EU. I want to look at Spain. I want to look at Italy. I want to look at Germany. I've got a lot of information to cover today, and I'm going to talk about derivatives and so much more. So let's begin by taking a look at Spain. First, I want to say hello to all my friends in Spain. Spanish lenders tumbled after the nation's Supreme Court ruled that they must pay a one-time tax of about 1% on mortgage loans that traditionally was passed to their clients. Now, it's great that the clients are not being taxed, but I want to tell you something right now. The way it works, and we just have to look at it in reality, they are going to put a tax on the bank. The bank is going to, first of all, it's an insolvent institution. You take an insolvent institution, you put more taxes on it, you find ways to put more pressure on it, and then it needs a bailout. And it gets that money from you. You bail out the banks. Why? Because the government decided, the black hole that is government decided that they needed to pay a tax, and then you have to pay the money. You pay it directly or you pay it indirectly. Either way, you have to pay the bill. The government always gets more and more and more taxation. No matter how much you give them, they're always asking for more. It's kind of funny the way that relationship works in between the government and the citizen. Seems to be a little bit of a one-sided issue most of the time. You give them taxation, you get your income taxes, they go up every year. You get your property taxes, they go up every year. And suddenly you're looking around and you're thinking to yourself, are things really improving that much? My cost of living is increasing at such a rapid rate, my wages aren't keeping up. And that's what people are finding in the EU today. There's a serious level of deflation in the wrong things, unfortunately. And this has been the case for many things that people are experiencing within the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and so on. They're not getting the inflation in wages, but they're getting the inflation in food prices, let's say, or energy prices. Okay, so nothing's keeping up here. And this is all because central banks screwed up this whole damn system. They ruined everything. It's never going to come back, and there will never be reality restored, at least for the foreseeable future. If we still have central banks, consider this system to be rotten to the core. Margins are already under pressure from low interest rates, and this adds to all of the negative sentiment toward banks. What you have to know about banks is very simple. You got fractional reserve lending, and they have these reserve requirement ratios. So think about this, all right? They say, all right, we're going to tighten our belts here. We're going to make sure everything is more secure and safe. That's what I keep hearing in the comments section from certain individuals, that things are much more secure today. The financial system is safe and sound, all right? So what they say is, we were allowing for every dollar, you could loan out $33. But today, we've tightened up. And in many cases, is actually, you can loan out $10 for every dollar. I mean, that's safe. That's like solid like a rock. Doesn't it sound so wonderful? I mean, you got $1 in there to bail out $10 worth. I mean, you got the FDIC, you got the CDIC in Canada, you've got insurance there to back it all up. So, I mean, it's got to be fine. Nothing to worry about. Move along. These institutions are entirely insolvent. And when people start to realize that, they may decide that it's not good to keep all of your money in the bank, and they may decide to put that money elsewhere. And if as little as 5, maybe 10% of people take their money and put it elsewhere, you're going to have a collapse of the banking system. I would say less than 5%, but let's just be ultra conservative. If that much money was removed from the banking system, just a fraction, just a small little bit, the entire thing would collapse. Adding pressure. Spanish bank shares fall after mortgage tax ruling. So instantly, you're seeing the repercussions of this immediately in the stock market. Okay? So that's what happens with all these banks. Now think about these very important banks, these big banks out there. They've got people's deposits, perhaps. They might be, some sort of investment institution. Okay, it doesn't matter. Either way, we're talking about companies that are controlling either billions, or in the case of derivatives, they're controlling trillions of dollars worth. Somehow, your deposits or your investments are linked in with that, whether it's your cash in the bank, or maybe it's a mutual fund, or maybe it's stocks somehow, you got them in there. Maybe it's some sort of retirement account that you have, a 401k, RRSP, super. Maybe you've got some other type of investment, okay, anything. They're all a pension fund, right? They're all interconnected with these markets, and these markets are trading on these platforms where you have all types of different, you have tech stocks, you've got, utilities, you've got financials. The financials here, they're insolvent. That is an absolute fact. These institutions are insolvent, and they're allowed to operate in this way simply because the government allows it. That's it. If it was a regular corporation, they would all be insolvent. They would all have to claim bankruptcy, as far as I'm aware. Maybe there are some smaller ones that are not like that, but any of the major institutions, they're like that, okay? Because they don't keep any cash on hand, and they can loan out as much as they want. That, as far as I'm considered, that's insolvency, and especially we find that out in, for example, the financial crisis. It was the absolute disaster, all right? So we knew that. Now, this has a contagion effect. It spreads throughout the system, in the financial system, through the stock market. You see how that happens, but it also happens geographically. And this is an example of that. This is from last year. Italy's bank bailout serves German interests too. So, of course, the way that you have the EU in particular, and the reason I don't like it, is that you have a group of people sitting on top that are deciding rules for the countries underneath it. Now, in a government of Italy, for example, or Spain, these countries here, they have a parliament, and they are deciding the fate for their people. They're supposed to be representatives representing their people. They live in that country, most likely, and they are dealing with the issues that are present within their country. You would assume that they have at least, some level of interest to see the country do well. Maybe there's corruption. Maybe they're dealing with, the wrong people inside and things like this. But that in general, they want, that country's best interest at heart. But if you have a group of people sitting on top of they're not in that country. They don't operate in that country. And yet they're making rules for that country. What do you think? Do you think they're going to have your best interest at heart? I don't think so. And that's what happens with the EU. That's the way it works. And that's why I really, really am against it. I know there are some people who like it. There are certain advantages. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But the number one most important thing is that you lose sovereignty. And people believe in the concept of pooling together sovereignty, but that doesn't work. If there's, let's just say two people, you and I, and we want to pool together our sovereignty, and I say, look, I'm gonna go down that road on the left, and you're like, no, actually, we're gonna go down to the right, and you have to come with me. I say, well, I want to go left, and you're saying, no, we're going right. Well, I'm not gonna feel good about it, and if it was the other way around, I'm sure you wouldn't feel good about it either. And that's the point. Of course, that's a simple sort of analogy, but I hope you understand. Italian public debt held by non-residents total $739 billion, $690 billion structured via negotiable instruments. When you're talking about this level of money, this is the type that can't simply just be bailed out, on a whim. oh, don't worry about it, it's just one of those banks. You know, how many of the bank failures did we see? They threw so much money at it. Whatever happened to that? Nobody even knows where this money goes. It's quote unquote restructured. This is garbage. It's going into a black hole. It's going into individuals' pockets that you've probably never heard the name of, probably will never hear the name of. And they're people that are bigger than you could imagine, that don't end up on the Forbes list. They're getting this money. It's a black hole. It just goes somewhere, and that's it. We never hear about it. Anyway, this is more of this data. Basically, EU budget chief seeks to ease the tensions with Italy, and that's happening today as you see the issues that are going on with Italy. Okay, are you going to be able to pay your bills? Are you going to be able to keep your budget within this level? The deficit must remain at this level, and we're going to decide that for you because we know what's best, because otherwise you're going to screw over the other nations. But I got the question to ask, and that is, why the hell is one group of people making the rules for all of these other countries? The EU shouldn't exist. You should have the partnerships with two separate countries on their own. Italy should deal with Spain. Italy should deal with Germany. Italy should deal with Greece. And they should collaborate together and have their own government, have their own interests in mind, not a group of unelected technocrats. Now, very quickly, this is the list of global, systemically important banks as of November 2017. I pulled this right from the FSB's website. And you're looking at these. I just want to give you an idea of some of the biggest banks in the world. All right. Now, obviously, they're going to be names you recognize: JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Bank of China is on here. And I wanted to note, congratulations, Canada. The Royal Bank of Canada makes the list. Wow, awesome. All right. So we're talking about banks here that are completely insolvent, and they have literally trillions and trillions of dollars worth of derivatives on their books. This is, I can't confirm the results here, all right? They're, going in here from the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, the OSFI. But I personally couldn't pull up the reports from all of these different institutions. Okay, so I can't confirm it, but I know that these numbers are fairly accurate. Okay, from what I've seen in other charts before. I just quickly pulled this up. Okay, so don't quote me on the numbers, but I'm just making an example. All right. Canadian banks' derivatives expanded by $1 trillion in 2016. This article is from 2017. And essentially what we're looking at is each of these banks having more derivatives than the GDP of Canada. We're talking about, let's just take CIBC. This is the smallest one out of the big banks. It has, think about this, essentially twice the amount of derivatives, $3 trillion, and the GDP is half that. That's insane. $33 trillion in derivatives from 5 banks in Canada. $33 trillion. That's practically $1 trillion for every citizen. Can you believe that? Think about that for a second, what that means. Hey, why not give these derivatives to people? Make everyone a trillionaire instead of making the Rothschilds and those that lie in the shadows the trillionaires. All right, now that's it for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up and give me a thumbs up. It helps to support this channel, so I do appreciate that very much. If you want to check the books out, hit the link in the description. If you're more interested in the audiobook version, check it out, themoneygps.com.